Ni hao, konnichiwa, shalom, ciao, bonjour, namaste, ciao.
Bienvenidos! Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. Through the magic of technology, we are beaming out to you in the entire universe from the beautiful, book-loving neighborhood of Reedville, the loveliest neighborhood in all of Boston. You know, I've said it before, I believe that real magic happens when we share stories together. When a kid sits down with a parent, grandparent, teacher, trusted friend, and opens a book, hearts connect, imaginations grow, and love shines brighter. Please help us expand our mission to help all families grow closer through reading by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, YouTube, Amazon Music, Audible, wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. Really wonderful show for you today. First up, Tia McGraff is here to celebrate her new middle grade novel, In Your Dreams, Jake. And later in the show, we speak to Austin Carnes. He is celebrating his middle grade novel, The Blind Boy Who Saw the Invisible King. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Fart Boy and Reeky Dog, Dino Doom. Fantastic new graphic novel written by New York Times bestselling author Joan Holub, who's written over 200 amazing books for kids. It's school sleepover at the museum. What could go wrong? Well, how about this? A snack-fueled explosion of garbanzo beans and peanuts unleashes a stink so powerful it brings the dinosaurs back to life. Now, Fart Boy, Reeky Dog, and their friends are in the middle of a dino-sized disaster. They have to solve tricky riddles, find missing bones, and stop the stinkiest villain of all, Professor Gravy Pants. Because if they don't, the dinosaurs could take over. Or worse, they could become Dino Dinner. This action-packed graphic novel is bursting with friendships, adventure, and enough laughs to shake the museum walls. If your kids love superheroes, if they love dinosaurs, and if they love to laugh until they can't breathe, then Fart Boy and Reeky Dog Dino Doom is the book for you. Because sometimes the power to save the world comes from the unlikeliest place. Grab your copy today and get ready for a reading adventure that's truly dynamite. Hey, this is a message for all the authors that are listening. You know, you worked hard on your book. You spent months, maybe years, writing, revising, dreaming, and believing. You created characters, solved problems, overcame doubts, and brought a story into the world that only you could tell. Now it's time to help readers discover it. The Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read program is created to celebrate outstanding children's books and to help authors reach more families. When a book earns our seal of approval, we don't stop with an award certificate. We review the book, feature it on the podcast, share it across social media, and help introduce it to parents, teachers, librarians, and caregivers who are looking for great books to share with kids. Because your story matters. And the families who need your story deserve a chance to find it. Please visit readingwithyourkids.com and click the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to learn more. That's readingwithyourkids.com. Let your book find the readers it was written for. Join us right now from Ontario in the beautiful nation of Canada. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new middle grade novel. It's called In Your Dreams, Jake. It's part of the Jake the Road Dog series. Please welcome to the show, Tia McGraff. Tia, how are you?
Oh, Jedley, thank you for having me on your show today. I've been really looking forward to this. It's a beautiful day here in Southern Ontario and a beautiful day to be talking about reading books with families, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. These are, everybody associates reading with your kids with being curled up on the couch or in bed. And those are great times to read. But boy, when your kids get older, going outside and reading under a tree or by a lake or in a park just spending time together reading on a beautiful day, it's a pretty cool thing.
Oh, absolutely. We're on Lake Erie, the North Shore of Lake Erie, and so a lot of camping here, provincial parks. So we see families that'll start rolling in around now, starting to set up their trailers, and school just gets out this week up here. So summer is just an amazing time for families to be together. And what we always like to do is have some Songs and Tales book events at some of the local bookstores, and even go to the campsites, or like you said, the park. We have a lovely park here, and we'll see families just gathered underneath a tree or on a picnic table, reading or playing board games together. I mean, it's a really, really lovely time of year.
Yeah. You mentioned song. In addition to being an author, you are a recording artist.
Yes, I'm a singer-songwriter.
Awesome.
Professional singer-songwriter. I started my career up here in Canada. I won the Canadian Open Country Singing Contest at the age of 19. And from there, I started getting phone calls. I wrote a song and put it on the radio. And then I started getting phone calls to be on various television shows, including one with Johnny Cash and June Carter.
Wow.
And so they were just the loveliest people. Johnny invited me to June's dressing room and introduced me to her. And she was sitting there with, slippers on her feet and curlers in her hair, putting on her makeup. And they were just so lovely. And so a few years later, after I'd been doing a lot of songwriting and releasing albums up here, I made the trek to Nashville. I loaded everything I could into my little Saturn, including my dog and my cat and my guitar and keyboard, and moved to Nashville. And that's where I met and married my husband, Tommy, from Colorado. And he's a songwriter, a wonderful songwriter. Yeah.
Cool. Living the dream of so many aspiring artists.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. These are difficult times, and no matter what we're doing, I think it's important that we just live our dream, first of all, whatever your dream is, but also sing and write songs and just find an escape if you can. Read books, whatever you can, just keep the creativity going and sharing it. And because that's what's going to lighten our loads, I think, right now.
Yeah. So let's talk about In Your Dreams, Jake. Is Jake inspired by your rescue dog?
Absolutely. So while Tommy and I were living in Nashville, we rescued or adopted a shelter dog, a rescue dog. He was in a kill shelter one day away from being euthanized. And I happened to go into the shelter that day and saw him, fell in love with him, and we adopted him. And we had an older dog, Bogey, as well, who had come with me from Canada. So Bogey was more like Jake's grandfather. And we had a cat, Dottie Lynn. And so Jake came home and lived with us, and then we started taking him on the road with us. And he's been all the way to El Paso, Texas, all the way to Nova Scotia. And he'd sit on stage with us, and he just was such a natural that he started getting fan mail. Tommy and I weren't getting fan mail, but he was getting fan mail. And so one day I'm backstage at a festival with other songwriters, and we're talking about the importance of our road dogs and how they just bring such comfort to the traveling musician. And I thought, wouldn't it be neat to write a song or to write a story for kids about life of a musician only through the road dog's eyes?
Neat. Yeah. I love that.
And so in the messaging, I have crazy, beautiful. Sorry.
No, we're just having a little technical problem. You froze for a moment.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
That's okay. So you're talking about experiencing life on the road through the eyes of Jake. Right,
through the road dog. And so I wrote my middle grade children's book and put some songs in it, of course. Wanting to share the gift of songwriting. I include songwriting tidbits in it as well. There's 3 songs in the original book. And we started taking Jake with us to bookstores, libraries, festivals. One of the really most memorable times was Tommy and I were touring in England.
Mm-hmm.
And we couldn't take Jake with us there, but we were in a school, and we were going to be doing an author event in the school in the afternoon, and then a concert that evening as a fundraiser for the school. So when we get to the classroom, the children in their beautiful English voices are singing along with our songs, and they'd been learning them online, and they loved the story of Jake. And then that evening, their families all gathered at the school, and we did our concert. And one father came up to me and said, "I can't thank you enough. I couldn't afford to take my kids all the way to London, England to see a concert like this, but you have come to us, and we were able to get our kids off the internet and come into a family event." And so that really stuck with me. And so when we came home, I've made it my mission to do as many of those in Canada and the United States as I can.
Yeah. I don't know if you know, the audience has heard me say this too many times, but I made a living doing educational magic shows around the States and the Caribbean and Central America for 35 years. And it's really an honor, I think, to be invited into a school or a library or a church to spend time with a family. Everybody is really, really busy, but when a family takes an hour and a half out of their day and plus travel to come to see you, it really is an honor, and it's so much fun.
It really is. And don't you kind of think of it as a calling?
Oh,
know?
Yes. I've said many times, my journey to the stage was divinely inspired. It was not something that I dreamt of as a kid. In fact, it kind of happened when I left social work and knew I couldn't continue on there, and said a prayer and what do I need to do? And try to read a newspaper, but there were tears in my eyes and I couldn't focus, and just kept turning pages. And the first story that I was able to see was a story that said Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus was in town, and they were having auditions for Clown College. And I looked up to heaven and said, "Dude, you gotta be kidding me."
Right.
But I went, and it was wonderful. I didn't attend Clown College, but I started studying. I get called back a couple of times to go down to New York and in some other cities to continue the audition process. And I started studying theater arts on my own in Boston. And by the time Ringling had made their decisions and sending out invitations, I had already started working on my own, doing school shows. And so the rest is history.
Oh, that's just beautiful. And what a journey, we were, we lived in Nashville. We were writing songs for, they call it Music Row, know.
Mm-hmm.
And then we started traveling around doing our independent artist thing. But I feel now that all along, really, I've been led to doing this children's book and children's songs, and just didn't realize it. I tried to fit into the Nashville. I never wrote songs about beer drinking or anything, and I tried to fit in and write my story songs. And in fact, we're putting together an album right now, and a lot of the songs are going to be a collection of older songs that I've written from past albums that we're just going to, resurface and repackage them on this. And I've written one new one called Caterpillar Song. It's just this cute little kid ditty that came flying out of me one day and didn't know what to do with it. So we recorded it and just found out yesterday that CBC Kids Radio has added it to their playlist up here in Canada.
Oh, fantastic. Congratulations.
Yeah. So thank you. And so it's like, I said to my dad, "Gee, Dad, isn't it, wouldn't it be funny if it's like the kids thing is what, I was meant to do all along?" And he said, "Well, absolutely, So like you said, we just thank God, and we listen to him, and we just carry on and follow his path. Sometimes he takes us on a little interesting road we never planned.
Absolutely. Yes. Those side treks are most entertaining and enlightening, probably more enlightening than they are entertaining sometimes.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting. I love the idea of telling talking to kids about what it's like to be or traveling clown or magician or what, just that whole idea. I don't think kids understand what goes into a concert. You're in Montreal one day, you're performing in Toronto the next day, Niagara Falls the third day, and all kids think of is, Tia's here in my school. That's cool, but without thinking where she was yesterday or where she's going to be tomorrow and what goes into making that happen.
That's right, and I include that in one of my chapters where Mama is putting together their tour and making calls to the booking agents and doing her radio interviews and putting together their set list, and they're practicing their songs, and they happen to write a new song while they're practicing, and then Jake is sitting on stage and he hears that new song and he recognizes it, and then he sees how engaging they are with the audience and what Mom and Daddy's music, how it affects the audience. And he starts to understand the gift of music that is shared between the audience and Mom and Daddy, and then the friendships along the way that are made. In the sequel, in Your Dreams, Jake, the one that I've just released, I take this a little deeper. Bogey, his older brother, is like I mentioned, he's his grandfather. Well, he passes away in this one, and Jake has to deal with grief, as so many kids do when they lose their grandparents, or someone close to them. He meets a lot of friends along the way, including one. We always love stopping at the rest areas in the United States. And so they stop at the rest area, and he meets a beautiful dog named Luna, and he realizes that she's attached to some wheels. And she tells him her story about how she lost the use of her hind legs, so she has these wheels, but she happens to be racing in the Pot Olympics, and so it's really, I've really stepped out on this new one. In fact, before our interview today, I received a call from a friend of ours, an elderly man, a Texan in El Paso, and he was crying. He said, "Tia, I just finished the book you sent me." And he said, "In Your Dreams," he said, "that's my story in every chapter." And so I thought, wow, that just really, really made me feel whole, made me feel happy.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Tell me, did you know from a very young age that you were a storyteller, whether it's telling stories through song or books?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, when I was a little girl, my mom and dad, we lived out in the country here in Southern Ontario. My mom was a school teacher, and we didn't have a library where we were living. The closest library was like 20 minutes away, drive. So I remember when the bookmobile, I don't know if you had bookmobiles.
Oh, yeah.
So the bookmobile came to town or came into our little neck of the woods. And Mom took us to the bookmobile, and I picked out a book called Little House on the Prairie. And I took it home and read it. And then I took it back, and I realized that there was more in that series. And then when I discovered that the same Laura who wrote the books was the Laura in the book, I just came alive with, oh my gosh, I want to be a writer. I want to write children's books. Look what this did. It just opened my heart and my imagination, and someone telling their life through characters and stories, and then I just landed into songwriting, and somehow I always tucked away that I wanted to write a book. I didn't know what it was going to be about. And then, like I said, this whole Jake the Road Dog idea came to us one day when we were backstage.
Great. Yeah, it's such a gift to be able to see the stories that surround us, and then to be able to share them with kids. I've recently, one of our past guests here on the show, Jane Yolen, just recently passed away. She wrote and published over 450 books.
Wow.
and her daughter was just on the show. I guess there's over 100 manuscripts that are waiting to be published. So, and one of the things that Jane told me when she was on the show is that if you take a walk through your backyard
Mm-hmm.
and you walk for 5-10 minutes, and if you don't come back with 3 or 4 stories, then you didn't look hard enough.
You weren't paying attention.
You weren't paying attention.
Wow, that's absolutely right. And in songwriting, we learn that's where we get our ideas is from listening to people. You might be standing in a coffee shop and you overhear a couple talking, and you pick up. You just train your ear to hear it. So, and in songwriting, we call it the 3-minute movie. Right. So you're trying to tell your story in a 3 minutes. So when I started writing the children's book, I was finding that I was like trying to condense everything. I didn't have enough words. And I was like, well, I've kind of said my whole story in like 1,000 words. So that was a whole other ball of wax for me was really learning to tell the story and to add the juicy bits and bobs and embellish it and tell the characters, and don't assume that someone knows what your character looks like or walks like or sounds like, right?
Yeah. Really, really exciting. And that must have been, oftentimes I talk to authors who start writing either YA or middle grade, and then they try a picture book and they have to go from telling a story in 30 or 40,000 words down to 300, 400 words. It's even more challenging to be able to tell a story in 3 minutes.
Right, which is the songwriting way.
Yeah.
And so it's a beautiful journey, as you know, and all of the authors know. It really is an incredible journey, and I'm so blessed, and just to go into the bookstores. I just had an email this morning. We're going to an art crawl in Amherstburg, which is on the border of Ontario and Michigan. And so they messaged that they're so excited about having us there. And so we're going to drive 3 hours to Amherstburg to set up our little table and share our songs and tales. And just for the simple pleasure of we just want to share this gift and share it with the families.
Yeah. Beautiful. I really love that. And it's such an honor to be able to perform for kids. And I remember somebody, it was an art teacher, and it was between shows, and he came up to me and like, don't you wish you could, perform for adults and just, kind of be, forget about having to teach the lessons, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, dude, this is heaven for me. This is exactly where I want to be.
Yeah, it really is. I had an interview the other day, a radio interview, and the host asked me a really good question. Said, so is it harder singing for kids or adults? I said, well, singing for kids is a piece of cake. They're authentic, they're real. You just get the bouncing and singing along with you, and they're happy.
Yeah.
Adults are the complex ones because so just to be able to do what we're doing, and in this day and age, and yesterday it was really cool as well. I was doing a radio interview, and I was talking to the announcer about my song, Caterpillar Song, and I said, do you remember when you were a kid and you heard that song, that little ditty, and then it stuck with you for your whole life, like maybe it was on Sesame Street or something? And he said, yeah, I remember that. And he said, it just resurfaces every now and again as an adult. And I said, because the child is still inside each one of us. Yeah. And in this day and age, when there's so much heaviness going on, so many problems, and families can come together and connect. And if one of these songs touches the kids, but now we're also finding adults are listening to these little ditties as well. Yeah. So I think it says something about our culture that we're just craving innocence. getting back to, like you mentioned, family time together under a tree, reading a book, singing a song, playing a game, whatever.
Yeah. And one of the things too that I found challenging, as my kids were growing, was this whole, the pop music that's on the radio that everybody's just consuming. And I wasn't happy with what they were hearing. I wasn't happy with the message, with the culture that was being celebrated in these songs. And, I learned you can't ban it, but you can introduce your kids to other music, and that's something that I went out of my way to do. And we found some great artists that sang and shared the values that I wanted my kids to embrace. And that's what we listened to for the most part, when they were young and growing up. And they chose not to do the really nasty, offensive rap. And I know there's some rap that's out there that's great and positive and uplifting. And they listened to some of that, but they chose, oh, no, this is kind of degrading. I'm not going to listen to this stuff.
This is where it begins, isn't it? It's at home.
Yeah.
With the family sitting down together, and my parents were the same. Like, they introduced me to great songs and great books. And like I said, my mom took me to the bookmobile and let us pick out our own little book. And so that's where it begins. And I really think that's so important, that families, we just put down our phones and our,
Yeah.
get off social media and get back to what matters.
Yeah. And I really encourage families, whether you're in a city or out in the country or, in a suburban town, there's a lot of live entertainment that, different places, you might have to drive a city or two away, but libraries and recreation programs, we're entering the summertime now, the bookstores, there's all sorts of live events that you and your kids can experience together. And it's really cool because unlike when you're spending $400 or $500 to go see a big superstar in an arena, at the end of a concert, in a park, you can probably go up and shake hands with the artist.
That's right. Absolutely. And you might even hear something better than you would have that $400 ticket that you were getting. Right?
Well, what you hear is something that's live and not being lip synced to. And, because if you're in an arena, you're probably not hearing live music.
That's right. And it's, that's right. Exactly. In fact, we're doing a little, on Saturday, we're doing a little concert, at our local cafe.
Uh-huh.
It's the cutest little cafe. They have the best paninis, the best brie and apple paninis. And so this has been something that I've been talking with the owner for a while. And he also works with Youth Unlimited here in our area. And so this is going to be a really special event, and we're hoping that we're just going to play some of our songs and maybe do a book author reading, and we're hoping that this will be the start of something bigger, like turn into songwriters in the rounds, or songwriting workshops, or maybe more author events.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just have to go out there and create these events, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And at the same time, you might, if you're listening to this, you might not be a singer, you might not be an author, but if you're a regular at a coffee shop or a pizza parlor and you notice there's not much happening here on Wednesday night, talk to the owner. Suggest that they bring some acts in, bring an author in.
Absolutely. That's right.
Could be starting something really cool.
Yeah.
Hey, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about In Your Dreams, Jake, find out more about your music, and find out more about you, Tia.
My website is tiamcgraff.com, and that's spelled TIAMCGRAFF as in Frank.com. And you'll find all my social media handles there. The In Your Dreams, Jake has its own page. And in the book, we have a QR code, which takes you to the page. And so when you go to the page, In Your Dreams, Jake page, you'll find wonderful little lyric videos to the songs that are in the book. And then, of course, there's Jake the Road Dog book, and we've got songs with that as well. So I just invite you to stop by, visit it, send us an email if you'd like, sign up. We have a little podcast show called Songs and Tales. You can check out our events, see where we're going to be performing, and just send us an email and let us know how you're doing and where in the world you are.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of In Your Dreams, Jake. It's a new middle grade novel from our guest, Tia McGraff. Hey, Tia, thanks for being on Reading with Your Kids.
Oh, Jelly, this has been fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, my friends, I want to tell you about a coffee company I recently discovered that really lines up with the values we talk about right here at Reading with Your Kids. It's called Afrera Coffee Company, and they're doing things the right way. The coffee is sourced directly from certified Rainforest Alliance farms in Central and South America, with a big focus on farms in El Salvador. I love El Salvador. They work directly with local farmers, support sustainable farming practices, and even use recyclable and combustible packaging. Now, all of that would already make me feel good about supporting them, but honestly, the coffee itself, it's fantastic. You can really taste the quality. The beans are grown in rich volcanic soil and carefully roasted, so the flavor really comes through smooth, rich, and super aromatic. Now, whether you're somebody who loves a strong espresso to get moving in the morning, or you prefer a lighter roast while reading a good book, Afrera has something you're going to enjoy. And this is kind of beautiful. 5% of all their sales goes to charities helping conserve and preserve the great outdoors. So if you'd like to try coffee that tastes amazing and supports good people doing good work, head on over to afreracoffee.com. That's AFUERA coffee.com, and use the promo code READ to get an exclusive 15% off your order. And of course, when you use the code, you're also helping support the podcast. Great coffee and helping families grow closer together. I call that a pretty magical way to start your day. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is sponsored by Ramble Office. You know, before I tell you about Ramble Office, let me tell you about what travel used to look like for me. When I take the Reading with Your Kids studio on the road, it was like a lot. I had one box for the mixer, another case for microphones, a satchel for my laptop, cables everywhere. And I always felt like I was forgetting something. That's why Ramble Office really clicked with me. Rambo takes everything I used to juggle, tech gear, personal stuff, and puts it into one smart, great-looking unit that's designed to be a mobile office, not just luggage. Everything has a place. Everything stays protected. And when you get to where you're going, you're ready to work. Instead of digging through bags or repacking your life every time you move, Ramble keeps your setup organized and ready to deploy. Travel days stop being chaos and start being productive. It's sleek, modern, built for people whose work doesn't stop just because they're on the move. And if your job follows you, whether that's podcasting, teaching, consulting, or creating, Ramble is worth a look. Go to rambleofficeanywhere.com, all one word, rambleofficeanywhere.com. Use the promo code READ, R-E-A-D, and receive 5% off any product. It's exclusive for Reading with Your Kids listeners. Check it out today, rambleofficeanywhere.com, promo code READ. Join us right now from not too far from our Reedville studios. Our guest is coming to us from the beautiful town of East Greenwich in Rhode Island. Our guest, he's here to celebrate his new middle grade novel. Is called The Blind Boy Who Saw the Invisible King. Please welcome to the show, Austin Carnes. Austin, how are you?
I'm great, Jedley. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Delighted to have you on. What an interesting title. Tell us about this book.
Yeah, thanks. The book really started with the title, and it was back in the COVID lockdown periods when everything was closed down. My family and I used to go on some long walks to just get the kids out of the house and kill some time. And the best I can remember, the title just kind of popped into my head on one of those walks. And I did kind of immediately think to myself, that would kind of make an interesting title for a book, kind of a classic quest story. And then I didn't do anything specifically with it for a few years, but it just kept sticking in my head. And, and so from there, I just started to think, okay, well, what kind of story should it be, and how would I resolve the two paradoxes in the title.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of where the story started.
All right. So tell us a little bit about the blind boy.
Yeah, it's a middle grade novel about a blind boy named Joe, and he kind of lives on a kind of a isolated island, which I left the time period of the island a little bit ambiguous, but it's been kind of untouched for 300 years. So there's no cars, there's no technology. They're kind of a step back in time. But Joe's been blind since birth, and he's kind of facing a tough time at school with a bully and so forth. But, he comes from a very loving, supportive family. And at one point, the bullying just gets a little bit too tough for him. And so he starts to hear that there might be a king who could give him some answers on why he was born as he was. And, after talking with his parents, he decides to go on a quest to find the king, to get some answers for himself about his life. And, along the way, he's kind of joined by two companions, and the three of them travel to the king. And they're kind of faced with some obstacles along the way. They're faced with kind of a supernatural presence called the Cloak. And the Cloak is kind of an evil presence who tries to, turn them away from their quest, plants doubts in them, plants some, gives them some physical challenges as well. So that's kind of the gist of it. And then, eventually they, probably not giving too much away, but eventually they do find the king, and Joe's able to, ask the questions that he wants to ask.
Oh, cool. It sounds like a book that if I were back in those middle grade ages, I'd jump right into it. There's so much that my imagination would grab onto. First off, just imagining what it would be like living blind.
That's right. It's right. Really, so that part of the story a little bit was inspired by my mother did a lot of work with blind people in the 80s and 90s, helping them to, learn to navigate the world and things like that. So I drew on some stories that I remember from her, but you're right. I mean, part of the book was trying to give people an understanding of, gee, what is it like to live as a blind person? And so, exposing them to terms such as echolation, which is a technique that blind people use to make sound with their mouth and then hear an echo or vibration off things to kind of gauge their surroundings. But also really when writing when we're in Joe's point of view, to give descriptions of Joe's world that are based on sound and touch and smell, and not just rely on kind of the visual aspects of the world. So I think that after reading it, in addition to kind of the quest nature of it, a reader would come away with a better understanding of what it is like to live as a blind person.
Yeah. The other question I would ask myself at that age is, how miserable do you have to be bullying a blind kid?
Yes, that is true. And, what we learn in the story is that bully has his own challenges that kind of make him miserable. And, eventually it turns out he's not actually bullying Joe, the blind main character, because he's blind, but the bully feels that Joe has everything while Paul has nothing. Paul is the bully. And, so that's one of the things I think that especially young readers could learn, that, even bullies might be dealing with something that make them or contribute to their actions, not to excuse their actions, but there might be some factors in their life that aren't perfect for them either.
Yeah.
So hopefully that would be one of the things that, parents could discuss with their children. Not only how do you deal with bullies at school, but, do you think the bully has some sort of problems that they're dealing with that's making them mad, that's making them cranky, that's making them lash out?
Yeah.
So I think it would be potentially a good discussion point.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's so important. And it's interesting. As people who listen to the show know, I did educational magic shows for 35 years. And when I first launched, it was mostly inspiring kids to make healthy choices, say no to drugs, say no to alcohol, that kind of thing. And I think it was probably 20, maybe 25 years ago, schools started addressing bullying and conflict resolution. I remember one of the administrators who hired me said, "Oh, you got to jump on this thing." And to be honest with you, I didn't want to, because I'm like, bullying is, you just learn how to deal with it. It's, school started calling me, "Do you have a thing?" And so I looked into it and did some research and created some great shows. Our understanding of bullying and how we deal with it really has matured over the years, to the point where I remember a school principal in a town not too far from you in Cranston, Rhode Island, was kind of disappointed that I wasn't getting the kids to cheer, "Say no to bullies, say no to bullies." I'm like, and so we've kind of grown in our knowledge that it's just saying no to bullying isn't going to deal with it. We have to work to create a culture of respect in our schools. And we also have to have some compassion for the kids who are expressing bullying behavior, because there's something going on in their lives too.
Yeah. I totally agree. Agree. Yeah.
I know from your website, and also just listening to you talk, describing the blind boy who saw the invisible king, faith is important to you.
Oh, it's very important to me. I'm a Catholic. We're heavily involved with our parish. I wrote the book in a way that if you are a Catholic or Christian, you'll recognize immediately those elements in the story. But I think I've done it in a way that it's not preachy. So, other people would enjoy it and just maybe not catch all the references that a Christian or Catholic would. For example, there's a small character named Veronica, and at one point she shows some kindness to Joe when he's getting bullying, and it's a small little part of the book. It just lasts a couple lines, and I think a secular reader would just say, "Oh, that's just a nice person at school trying to help him out." A Christian or Catholic might recognize or draw the analogy that, Saint Veronica, the tradition is she helped Jesus when he was carrying the cross to Calvary. She wiped his face. And so I tried some of the characters have those kind of biblical parallels to them. But if you're just a secular reader, you just say, "Oh, that character is doing something nice." But if you are a Christian or Catholic, I think that you would, that a reader would pick up on kind of those references that I've woven into the story. Yeah. And hopefully that adds a little bit of, adds some depth to it. So if an 8-year-old is reading the story, maybe they're really tuned to the adventure of it. But if a parent is sitting there with their child, maybe they pick up more on these things, and it makes it, a little bit of an interesting read for them as well.
Yeah. The first book I wrote, first kids book I wrote, was called The Great Maratini. And, it came from a live show where I just improvised on stage in front of a group of college kids. A priest had asked me to come and, perform at the anniversary of their Life Teen program, their youth program. And my daughter was with me. She was in 3rd grade at the time. And, we could say that I was inspired by a 4th grader than me, and I just went into this story on stage with a college kid and my daughter. My daughter's like, "Bobby, what are you doing?" Go with it, baby. Go with it. And it turned out it was a retelling of the story of the great of the Good Samaritan, but I called the book The Great Maritini, and I would tell the story like your book. You could do it in front of a Christian or a Catholic audience, and they would get it, the references.
Yeah.
Usually, or you could do it at public school and no one would know anything.
Yeah.
But I remember being down south and in a public school, and I did the routine. It was great. It was funny and it was magical and everything. And after the show, this little girl, adorable little girl, came up to me and kind of whispered. She goes, "You believe in him, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. Yes, I do."
Yeah.
But she didn't want anybody in the public school to hear, so she didn't want to blow my cover.
What was the name of that book again?
The Great Maritini. I just did a plug for it. Yes, you can get The Great Maritini at Amazon.
That's great. That's great. That's funny that it's just a little coincidence that was based on the Good Samaritan. I did kind of weave in a Good Samaritan episode into the book as well. So, but I'll have to check that out. Can you get it like on Amazon or something?
It's available on Amazon, and if someone doesn't want to talk to Amazon, just contact me and we'll.
Okay.
So yeah. I'm curious. I don't know if you agree with me, but I think that reading with our kids, in addition to being a great way to bond with our kids, in addition to helping them develop the skills of reading, and we know that it helps kids hear more words than their peers who aren't read to every day, and there's so many different benefits. I also think reading with our kids is the best way to instill values, the values that we want our kids to carry on. And you don't have to be reading religious books or faith-based books. It's just, hey, this happened, and what choices would you make? Well, I kind of make these choices because, and share, and it could be for any faith tradition.
Totally. One of the things that we're so glad we did with I have two sons who one's now in college and one's going to be a senior in high school. And one thing that we're so glad was the nightly reading before bed. And you're right. It wasn't always religious. Sometimes it was just, there's that book called, Giraffes Can't Dance. I don't know if it's a picture, right? My kids love that book, but that's another book, very, a picture book, but very positive message. Mm-hmm. But just, everything from the classics to, we read the Chronicles of Narnia, stuff like that. But you're right. Just by reading, the conversation just starts flowing. Mm-hmm. And, it's a great way to instill values. It's a great way to build a relationship with your children. And it helps them with the reading and so there's practical stuff like that too, but it's just a all around win-win-win type of situation. And it's nice to build, if you build that tradition when your kids are young, it becomes just part of, and they look forward to it. Yeah. They look forward to it after a long day at school, or if something didn't go right, all right, it's time for a story before bed. And it's just great. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Such an important, and one of the neat things, and it was my daughter's second grade teacher. When my daughter started reading independently, I was kind of bummed out. I'm gonna miss reading with you. And my daughter's teacher came up to me and she said, "You got to keep reading with her." And I said, "Thank you." Me and my daughter kept reading all the, it was either reading out loud when she was younger to co-reading and talking about the books after as she got older. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Yeah. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So, I miss it. So you told me that the book was, the title came to you on a walk during COVID. Had you always dreamt of becoming a children's author, or was that something that just kind of came to you as well? I had off and on interest in doing it through the years. When I was in college, I was a English and econ major, and I for my career I did stuff more related to economics and investments. But in back of my mind, I had always thought, gee, I would like to try to write a book someday and, try to, or, hopefully, a few books. And so when my kids were younger, I did kind of make up a few stories that we kind of wove into the rotation of the nightly reading that were stuff that I had kind of dreamt up. So I guess the title had popped in, but I had kind of dreamt of one day doing it, but it just didn't know when.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, well, now I've got a title. I just have to put a story around it and write it. But the title was, to me, the title was striking enough where I was like, okay, that's something that I would like to really try to do. So that it kind of gave me a kick in the tail to do it.
Yeah. Tell me, what do your kids think now that their dad's an author?
They think it's pretty cool, I think. My family has been very supportive, my wife and my kids, and my sister as well, very supportive of it. When the books first came, that we ordered some copies, and it is kind of surreal to have it in your hand. So I think they thought that was kind of neat. And I hope one of the reasons for writing it is, I picture if my kids have kids one day that they can read it with their kids and say, Joe, yeah, your grandfather wrote this. And I hopefully that would be kind of a cool thing for them.
Yeah.
So that was kind of another side motivation for wanting to do it.
Very cool. Very cool. Tell me now that the blind boy who saw the Invisible King is out there in the world and you have physical copies and you're loving that. Are you working on a second book?
Yeah. The second book, there's a brief preview at the end of the first book of the first few the first few pages of the second one. But the tentative title is The Blind Boy and the Lost Son. And it would be kind of a prequel and a sequel to this first one. The first chapter of this first one takes place 46 years before the blind boy Joe and his friends take over. And so the second book would be kind of related to that 46 years ago in the first chapter of this book and kind of explain the events around that. And then the story would kind of converge as we go. But so I've got the entire outline for it written and kind of all the chapters kind of mapped out. And I've got maybe about 25 to 30% of a rough draft written so far. So that's been fun kind of to think about how to, extend the story and, what new adventures the characters can have.
Yeah. So you have caught the author bug.
I think I have. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. Hard work at times, but for me, I think it's been more fun than work. It's fun to try to dream up the characters, dream up the events, dream up the world, and then try, okay, how would I describe this? And, especially with, Joe, being blind, okay, what are the sounds? What are the smells? What are the tastes? And really trying to incorporate that into the world building has been, really fun aspect of it for me as well. Yeah.
Well, let's tell everybody where they can go to find out more about the blind boy who saw the Invisible King and find out more about you.
Sure. I have a website called veritasandbind.com. That's with V's. So V as in Victor. So veritasandbind.com. And you can find, some information about me. I also have a free resources page on that website with a free downloadable study guide that has some discussion questions that parents or schools or reading groups could use. There's also a free crossword puzzle that people could download, and I hope to augment some other stuff soon. And then the book is available, probably most easily on Amazon. And people want to check it out, I'd be most grateful for sure.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of The Blind Boy Who Saw the Invisible King. Great new middle grade novel from our guest, Austin Carnes. Hey, Austin, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Jelly. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, we hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. This episode made you smile or gave you something to think about. Please consider sharing a link to the show with someone you love. Leave a 5-star review and, of course, subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with our guest, Tia McGraff. Please be sure to check out In Your Dreams, Jake. Also want to thank Austin Carnes. Please be sure to check out The Blind Boy Who Saw the Invisible King. I want to thank my team, Daylene Rose, Anvina Lopez, Ella Baudier, Chris Doherty. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support and love she gives me. Most of all, we want to thank you. You know, for years, I've been thanking you for taking the time to make the world a better, more empathetic place, and you do that. But you also, every time you read, you're helping your kids have the best chance of being happy and successful in life. The single biggest, most accurate predictor of whether or not your kids will be happy and successful, if you're reading with them. If you're listening to this, I think you probably are. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.